Well, we'll give everybody a few more minutes to join us.
Good to see some
And
regulars flowing in.
that's what I was just sort of checking to see who all was here. Leo, Justin, a few other people. Yeah, cool. Oh, before we kick off, anybody have any interesting stories or developments from their week?
I will share a red door truth. We hit below one on our exterior air barrier test yesterday. So that means once we do our interior, we should be well below one, which is nice because that was a nicer box to wrap.
We
No,
so go ahead. Sorry, Connor, did I interrupt you?
how large is the project? What's the envelope size, Sean?
I mean, the house is 2,800 square feet, 3-story. So the basement main floor is easy, and then there's a little skirt roof. So the house comes in 3 feet, and then the top floor is there. So it's our North Van project. And again, it's great when everyone works together. Nice sequencing, nice floppy bits. So the framer puts on some memory, and ties it in, and then our amazing insulator comes in afterwards and deals with the interior membranes and mixed all work. So takes a team, takes the right sequencing and the right planning to put all the connection pieces together. But it's always nice when you get to that point and you hit your mark. So yeah, you fire up the blower door, hits 1.2, you walk around, find a bunch of leaks, get below one, and that takes care of the energy advisor's requirement at mid construction. And then we can work the next couple of days of dealing with our interior air barrier and vapor control layer and retest it with our own machine and kind of dial things in. It's always the fire.
We had a red door of truth this week too, and it kind of turned into a
Was
party.
that a step 5 project or just
So the project is actually a step 1, right? So we just need to turn it on and walk away. But as a company, our goal is to get below 1. So we actually asked the energy advisor to give us a model of what step 5 would look like. So for those that are joining us in BC, we've got the BC Energy Step Code where we're moving to near passive house levels of heating, cooling demand, and air tightness by 2032. And as of May this year, we have to build to step 3. But at Clay Construction, we have some projects that are still kind of moving in the step code world. And so, yeah, the current one that we were just discussing is in North Vancouver, where it's a step code 1, but the client wanted to get to step code 3. And of course, we're pushing them to step 5. So yeah, they didn't buy the step 5 rated windows. But at least with the air tightness levels we're working at, it'll be neat to see how the model looks like at the end, given that we're aiming for a sub 1 air tightness level. So
that's awesome.
Nice, that's awesome.
Those are the stories I love to hear because you could do better. You don't have to aim for just the target goal. Always practice to push it to whatever you can and repeat.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that repeatable system is how do we work with our team and create a air sealing specialist throughout and ensure that the team can deliver from handing off floppy bits to the next and to the next and to the next until we're right there to ensure that all the plumbing, mechanical, electrical penetrations are dialed in, and the insulator has done the insulation and the interior air barrier and dialing it through. So yeah, it's fun of making sure that everyone plays their part in the big game.
So we did the red door of truth as well, and as I mentioned, it turned into a party. We didn't know a bunch of people were going to show up, but we were in the middle of getting ready to fog, and our gentleman who does all of our mudding, he showed up just to see where the project was at with his son, and our local building inspector stopped by just to we invited him. He wanted to see what was going on. You know, air tightness isn't a requirement by code here locally yet, but we all know in Canada it's coming. So he just wanted to see what that was all about and what we did to get to the numbers we do get at. So 0.39, not too bad on the exterior envelope, with 90% of our penetrations made and sealed. So hopefully we can stay right around there, which is for us is a win because we're doing it with basically builder grade windows. You know, they're not European windows. They are triple glazed, but they're something you can pick up from just about any supplier across Canada who makes a PVC window. So it's, you know, it is possible. You can do it with regular run of the mill materials off the shelf.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's so exciting that you have an opportunity to practice and influence your community with stuff that doesn't scare people off. That's one of the things we try to promote at BCIT when we're first doing the builder education. Everybody want to talk about cost, and we try to hone in on process. So we created process with cost-effective materials. But I do find when you put self-adhered materials in the hands of professionals, they have to change their skill set. The roofers can't come and cut step flashing into self-adhered materials.
No, sequencing is key. But before we get carried away and excuse me, we burn up all of your good material, Cody. We should probably kick this off. We should probably get going. So welcome to BS&BEER Canada. BS stands for Building Science. My name's Aaron Jones. I'm a carpenter and a builder on Grand Manan Island in New Brunswick, Canada. And this evening, I am drinking a Haka. It is a Vienna lager from my good friends at Brewboard across the pond in England. They have a little relationship with Intelligent Membranes. Some of you may have seen some of their stuff. So again, welcome to BS&BEER Canada. And Connor, you want to introduce yourself next, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I'm Connor Malloy. I'm a designer, builder, and educator in Toronto. Predominantly, I teach as a professor at George Brown College. We teach in the carpentry and building and renovation program. And it's what we're all talking about today. It's how do we get the next generation to understand the fundamentals of building better, both in building principles and building science, and then building equitable, safe job sites, and looking to learn more here today. I'm drinking Canuck, which is made by, will it focus? Let me close my eyes. My camera set up to focus on my eyes. I can't see now. Anyways, this is Canuck. It's made by GLB, which is a Great Lakes Brewery here in Toronto. It's a wonderful pale ale. Over to you, Laurie.
All right. Sorry, that was funny. I don't know if I have ever had a beer. Today I have an apple. Brand new off a tree just this week. I also have a red wine, which this is a Malbec. I have no idea how this combination is going to go. I'm going to try and eat the apple before the wine. Have a little palate cleanser. And I promise I'll do better, you guys. I'll get a beer one of these days. I am based in Halifax, and I keep moving the wrong way. I keep blocking it. So here on the East Coast, and I am a passive house designer, and I kind of split my time between two companies. So I'm the co-owner of a company called Habit Studio, and we design single family homes. If they're new, they're passive house. If they're not new, they're deep retrofits, somewhere on the spectrum. And I also am a design director for a nonprofit organization called Recover, and we're working to accelerate retrofits in our region and beyond, and particularly panelized retrofits. So that's the work I do. And in my free time, which there is none, I also am an instructor for Passive House Canada, and I teach both the designer and the builder trades. So I'm excited to chat with tonight's guest, because I might learn a thing or two. And over to you, Sean.
Excellent. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from us. Hopefully, again, you're coming somewhere from coast to coast across this amazing land that we call Canada. Connor, I appreciate you drinking a Canuck beer because it's always like these Maple Leaf and Canuck rivalries. So I think it's appropriate that you guys have stolen our hockey name and made a beer out of it. So everything happens in the big TO, eh, Connor? I'm Sean St. Amour with Clay Construction, VP of Operations. So I tell my kids every day that I get to play with Lego every day. And if you know Vancouver's market, that's pretty expensive Lego that I get to play with. Got to be a certified passive house tradesperson at the location where our guest is joining us today. And I also get to hang out with the amazing crew over at the Passive House Accelerator, where I do some hosting of the Construction Tech Edition of the Accelerator Lives. And today, because again, hockey season has started. And so we had beer league and there's some leftover buds from hockey. So I'm going to have one of those today. And some news that our foreign correspondent won't be joining us because he indicated that he was stuck in the Tim Hortons lineup. So once that lineup is maybe cleaned up, he might join us. But he also indicated that there's a maple syrup farm next door. So we may not see Mark tonight. We'll see what happens. Now, let's get started on tonight's presentation because I have the pleasure of introducing a good friend of mine who has done an amazing job of training many builders, industry folk that have taken on the Passive House Tradesperson course at BCIT, but also too is, again, we indicated earlier at the top of the show, the BC Energy Step Code is in full force here within BC. And we do talk about net zero and some high performance. And so the courses have changed and there's different offerings. But if you do go to the BCIT School of Construction website, you get an idea of the amazing list of courses that are offered to educate builders and our communities. So architects, designers, anybody that wants to learn about high performance and understand the step code and ensure that we're building healthy, comfortable, energy efficient buildings that of course don't allow bugs and dust into them. You can learn from Cody and all the amazing instructors that are part of the BCIT course. Has been a taping specialist and of course created his own company called Envelope First. And so if you need some coaching, you can hire Cody to help out on your jobs. And it's great to see that he's working with many individuals within the Vancouver market, some offsite construction, some regular builds. And of course, he'll show up with an amazing smile and a huge wealth of knowledge. And the fact that he is involved in the Indigenous community, teaching and doing some really cool projects with some schools. He's kind of everywhere across BC, and tonight he is located himself at BCIT, and you can see some amazing mock-ups behind him. So Cody, welcome to the show. I know that the school won't allow you to drink anything fun, so you're stuck with either coffee or whatever you're drinking, but we'll turn things over to you and give us an idea of what's happening at BCIT tonight.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I hope everybody can hear me. Sean kind of hit the nail on the head with all the hats I wear. So thank you very much. I'll see you later. So my name's Cody Brentzen. I'll always introduce myself as a Red Seal carpenter first, self-proclaimed wood geek. I wear many hats in the industry because I'm very passionate about this industry and the purposeful way we're starting to build. I did a lot of work in the leaky condo industry. I had a framing company for a large amount of time, and then I got into site supervision because that's where broken carpenters go. But it gave me an opportunity to now look at things, from a holistic point of view. And we started participating in passive house builds probably in about 2017. I mentioned in a lot of my courses at that time, we Googled the information and everything came up in German and Swiss. Around that time, I met Sean St. Amour. He was one of my first instructors when I came into the Passive House Canada course. And I was instantly hooked. The light bulb went on and I saw the path that I needed to work towards, and very fortunate to be included in one of the great group of instructors at BCIT. Again, I'm just coming from the carpentry practical point of view, and we have instructors that shine in ways that I do not, and a number of people that work behind the scenes, because there's no way I can do this kind of work all on my own. But I get to do all sorts of very cool projects. I stepped away from custom home building for a while to focus educating. And then through the pandemic, I created my company Envelope First, mainly because we kept talking about this envelope first approach to our barriers. And I took my marketing background and ran with it and thought, yeah, this is a great opportunity to promote what we're trying to do and move our envelopes to the exterior. I started out offering contracting, but everybody wanted to try this themselves. So I had to let my crew go, including my son, which was just business decision. And then now people are participating in it and they want to find people to hire to do this. So slowly trying to build a team to go out and do some pre-striping and some sequencing. But most of the time with my Envelope First role, I spend my time consulting builders and helping them through the pathways of the performance metrics. So basically an air boss for hire, where I really want to promote that, like Sean was saying, with the floppy bits, it's a baton race. You can't run that race by yourself, but it's what's expected that you leave for the next trade. So I try to go in with my carpentry background and my framing background, really, because I can visualize a project from drawings up and really start to implement these receivers and give enough information so it doesn't bog them down and create some touch points to help them out along the way. Since then, a lot of my passive house projects are a little more onerous, and I've put my builder's hat back on, and I'm also building a passive house here in Vancouver. We are broadcasting from unceded Squamish, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam territory. I am a Whaleetsum First Nation member, and so I found myself in an incredible opportunity to lend my career experience with my culture. And so this Sunday, I'm actually flying up to Bella Coola for the third time to go help the Newhawk Nation with some capacity building. I'll be in Prince George in early October with Moberly Lake First Nation. And I just came back from Squamish doing a deep energy retrofit on a 1940s panabode log cabin that Envelope First was the contractor, and I was also an instructor. And we had a group of Indigenous youth, boys and girls as young as 17 years old, and we took a log cabin that had a baseline ACH of 33 to 56. The fan wouldn't even plateau, and we hit 0.7. So if I could have 17-year-old girls and boys doing this, come on, builders. There's no excuses. It's just a little different, and finding a fundamental way to strip away, decouple things, deal with your envelope, the red line, follow that red line around your building, and success is the only option for this, because we're all fighting climate change, energy demand, utility bills, grocery bills. There's so much more than just building a healthy home. But it's a phenomenal career to get into. And I find the younger generations that I teach, they nod their head. Yes, I will do this. The older professionals, we have to have a lot of fun and play some games to break egos down. And then they start coming around again. But I see all ages, all levels. I finally am excited to see that all of our classes are filling up. There's a stronger BC Future Skills Grant that's covering 100% of our tuition costs right now, which was a big problem that we found with inflation. Voluntary learning was the first thing to go. Now we're seeing that coming back with some initiatives from the government. So I get to play in the toy box and do new mock-ups all the time. Some of our courses that I am participating in, we've implemented a building science module line into the carpentry curriculum. So second-year carpenters come to my classroom for 2 days, and we strip in a window. We do 2 penetrations. We complete the wall, and we put a smoke chamber on the wall and qualify their work. It's a big high five moment for everybody, because the second-year level usually gets astounding results right away. And we do the same thing with industry. We've had Bird, Leadcore, Ellis, Dawn, Vantana. Tomorrow I've got a full day training with Vanmar and all their gendered trades, where they take their plans to us. We extrapolate the ideas and speak to the intent of the details, because we can't change the details, but we can talk about the number of ways that we can make it more cost effective and streamlined for everybody involved. So incredible opportunity. I have to give a big nod to my program facilitator, Alex Hebert and Mary McWilliams, and also the people that saw something in me, principals at RDH, James Bourget, Jeff Kirkpatrick, Brian Hubbs, the list goes on and on. So, I didn't just land here on my own, but it's a fostering community, like everybody has created across Canada here. So my first time being in the room with all of you. I could probably spend more than a half an hour just enjoying our time together. And like Sean said, I got to stick to my iced Americano. It's still summer here in Vancouver, and we have BCIT policy, but I'm sure I'll be very thirsty by the time I get home.
That's awesome, Cody. If I could jump in and steal the first question, because there's a lot to unpack there. I think you have a pretty wonderful background. You've got clearly a passion for educating members of your own community around professional builders and students and elsewhere. I think maybe to start, I grew up in a building business as well. My dad is a carpenter, runs a building company. I'm curious for you, when you transition from, let's call it carpentry only, into thinking about larger than just carpentry, into envelopes and detailing, how do you think the role of the carpenter for you and the way that you teach has changed from when you started, whenever that was, to now? How has that role of carpenter changed?
Oh, well, it's a lot more collaborative. I've been a red seal carpenter since 2004. Like you say, like, started my first job and only job, really. A lot of my career, in my early days, nobody wanted to share information because they thought you had to pay you more. And I find moving forward, the plans are out. We want our youngest members on the team to know as much as the oldest members, so we can move on to different tasks. But I think the role of a carpenter, with some education, there's a lot of carpenters out there that aren't ticketed, haven't gone through indentured education, and I don't think that disqualifies them from the conversation at all, because it's a very talented group. But the role of a carpenter, we're the first ones there and the last ones to leave, essentially. Especially if you're in an integrated company that isn't just, say, framing. I truly think the carpenters are going to be the ones that lead this, but all trades need to take on a little bit of that role.
Yeah, I think that sounds.
I think when I started, there was conversation that framers wouldn't do this. I think framers very much will. But yeah, sorry.
I think you're right. I think if this comes back again, you're saying, as a general carpenter, general contractor, if you're responsible for the building, you're responsible for the tile interior, the kitchen, and the durability of the envelope and the comfort of the occupant. You are the one that's responsible. And a lot of builders we find out here they're led by carpenters. They're carpenter based. That's who they employ as their core, staff. That's their employees, and they subcontract these elements. And you're right; they're probably responsible for the envelope, and it is up to them to understand if it's in your scope of work, not just the wood, the sheathing, the framing, the blocking, but we need you to include the pre-strip at the foundation to wall connection. When you get to that second floor, here's the detail for how you want to connect to the interior vapor control, or just to be very clear with themselves and the trades, this WRB or whatever the air control layer is on the exterior, this is what that layer is. Let's all be very comfortable with it. And that sounds like what you're doing out there is making sure that each carpenter understands that it's more than just the structure. You're really building the first pieces of what we call the envelope.
Yeah, that's very true. It's hard getting existing professionals in the trade in the classroom because they don't have to upgrade professional development points. So that's kind of why we directed these micro credentials to the carpentry program. So our hope is that we're going to do these offerings with the carpenters throughout their Red Seal program, that they have an opportunity to leave with 2 micro credentials at the same time as a Red Seal. The top of wall details, the base of wall details, the poly stripping behind the walls. I had a group of second year carpenters in here, and we're talking about tying in top of wall to that poly flap. That's an air barrier. One of them said, I thought that was handles to lift the wall with. So just an overall understanding that you can't just put it there, nail it down, salt over the shoulder, and hope it works. It has to perform. And I think getting away from this piecemeal mentality of I do this, who's doing that. We need to think we're all in the success of this home for somebody's greatest investment of their life.
That's awesome. And I should say, first of all, I love that you introduced yourself as a Red Seal carpenter first. It shows, your passion for the trade and what you love. And you guys have already kind of nailed this all off, but I truly believe that, carpenters or framers are going to be part of doing the envelope. They have to be. They're there when it happens. So if you don't involve them, you don't teach them, you don't have them do it, it's too late. You're going to try and paint it on afterwards, which sometimes is a valid method, but I don't know. All of the people that are doing really well that I see are getting great numbers consistently, not one off, but consistently getting good numbers. They have good framers in house, or they're subbing out to the same framer over and over and over again. And every time they're dialing that detail in, they're finding out how to sequence things just that little bit better than they did last time. And I think you're right. You just, it has to be carpenters or framers or some semblance there to bring somebody in specifically to handle a floppy bit mid framing. Not going to happen. So let's just teach the people that are there in the moment to detail it correctly in that moment.
Yeah, I was always trained to start out the way you want to finish. And I would never frame off of someone else's foundation. I don't expect a drywaller to be my best friend if I don't line things up as a framer. But we can't single-handedly leave this up to the insulators with poly. They tend to get hung up to dry. We can't leave this all to the cladding department putting on the WRB correctly. There has to be integration from each level, and each trade needs to buy in. And ultimately, the builder has to be able to have phenomenal communication skills.
I would agree the builder does have to have communication skills, and he has to have that fine balance to know when he needs to be a diplomat and know when he needs to have a little bit of teeth to line people up and get everybody on board. Because unless you have experience working with that crew, till you can learn how to work together, sometimes you've got to find that way, and it's not always easy with every. People are hard. That's what it boils down to. Is people are hard sometimes. But yeah, it's 99%.
You shared a story in the beginning about your red door. Yeah, your red door, how it turned into a party. I used that strategically on one of my first passive house builds where my plumber was coming for a payment and we were doing the blower door test that day. And a lot of these trades are gone by the time the red door truth shows up. So I would strategically give their handouts the day of the blower door test. And so they'd come to site and I'd open the door, he's knocking, it's locked. I'd say, hey, you in or you out? I said, well, I guess I'm in. And then sort of explained what we were up to that day. And next, you could see he's thinking about the things that he did. And he's running around searching for leaks, grabbing tape. Hey, I found one. Go back to the monitor. The number dropped, high five moment. Everybody understands what we're after. So it's a great opportunity to create camaraderie and an awareness of what the goal is. And it kind of feels like you're on a game show. If you got a checklist and you're tracking leaks, priority, and not just kind of running around with tape, being reactive. I find that type of learning is a lot of fun, and you get a lot of great conversation out of that, and you influence people. Because really, I want people to be excited to put their boots on when they come to my site.
That's killer. That sounds like exactly the way to sell people, to motivate, make it fun. And that's what we struggle and succeed with our own students, is how do we make something as important of air control visible? Insulation, you can go down Home Depot or pick the big box store of your choice. There's an aisle marked insulation. There's products, they have numbers, you can pick them up, you can weigh them, and you can physically see it going in. And as you said so eloquently, air control is really a baton race, and it's not just one product. Could be floppy bits, tapes, sheathing, different transitions. And that is a hard thing to understand unless you can see it and measure it. I was talking to students today. It's like, if I asked you what your cholesterol is, could you tell me? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, I feel it's like if I told you to lose weight, but you only wear stretchy pants and never weighed yourself, you might feel like you're doing better because I ate an apple, like Lori did, and I gave up what I want to eat. But unless I'm actually measuring and learning, it's not quantifiable. And the fact that you can make that collaborative and fun, a bit of a challenge with your subs is a great way to learn together. That's killer.
Yeah, it ends up being a lot of fun. And, you know, but if I go back to my framing days, I like to refer to it as it's just a bunch of people listening to music building a house. It could be a lot of fun, and education can be a lot of fun too. If we were in the lab, you'll see that we have a disco ball hanging from the roof, and we like to have a lot of fun and, you know, tell a lot of jokes. And sometimes we have to break the ego down a little bit. So when we have some big build release meet and we play some fast-paced music, we set them in baton race and we cut all the high performance tapes with the hard backings to get off into 1x1 squares, and they have to lay them down onto a little patch. And we set up prizes and whatnot, and they get to pick from a table who finishes first. And then we show them, you know, release the tape from the backing, not the other way. They all think we're mean, but it's a fantastic way to, like, hey, we all can start from level one now before we hit the project. And I think when you take the fear out of education and you get people up and moving and out of their comfort zone, then we find some growth.
That's excellent, because, you know, you really do have to lay it all out there, because it's not like going shopping for drywall when you're looking for these details. You can walk into any lumberyard, any big box store and say, hey, where's the drywall? And somebody's going to point you in that direction. You say, hey, where's the air barrier? All you're going to get is crickets at the lumberyard. So, you know, unless you happen to run into Sean or yourself, or Connor or Lori or myself at the lumberyard, then they're going to say, okay, what's your wall assembly? But until you understand how all those parts and pieces go together, you know, it can be hard. It can be intimidating. And I think that's probably sometimes where you've got to break down the ego is, you know, I've been doing it this way for a long time and it works, or I think it works, because like Connor mentioned, it's never been quantified or qualified. Nobody's ever set up that door and said, how did we do on this one? I know that was huge for us when we finally had a blower door in-house. We didn't have to wait on an auditor to show up. We could start checking things along the way. You know, our growth changed exponentially as far as air tightness, because we were able to deal with stuff in the moment, not, well, dang, we missed something. It's somewhere here. We don't know where because it's behind this finished wall, but we should have done better there.
Yeah, I think as soon as you can accept feeling comfortable with the reverse of the outcome you're aiming for, like on your journey for wisdom, you got to feel a little bit less. On your journey to rich, you got to feel a little poor. I think that little bit of humility is worth it, because we're in a fluid state where prior to, you know, say May 1st, we had a code change here where we had to hit step 3 in BC. There was a lot of builders going to municipalities that didn't have step code because they just didn't buy in yet. But you have such an opportunity to practice before that starting gun goes off. And I think the benefits from it far outweigh the fear.
I would agree 100% with that. Any young people that come to work for us, or even just come to like hang out for the summer, it's like, okay, there's a curve here. Where do you want to be on that curve? Do you want to be down here? Do you want to be ahead of it? Or do you at least want to be with it? Because it's up to you. You know, it's all there. Where do you want to be? And on some things, we're just trying to keep up. On other things, as a builder, as a carpenter, I'm trying to be a little bit ahead. And you can't be everywhere all the time, but pick the things that are important to you as a tradesperson. Think about the type of stuff you want to build, and then choose who you want to associate with. You know, you want to come hang out at BCIT and learn some of the cool ways to deal with your envelope, or go hang out with Connor at George Brown and, you know, learn some really great techniques there. Those are options. Or you can go learn maybe how not to do things.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go far together. And that's one of the major merits I find to high performance building is there used to be this sort of idea of don't look behind the curtain of my job site. This is my intellectual property. And now we have this community that fosters support. I'm like, hey, I'll come to my site. I'll show you how I did it, because I think everybody needs to be practicing this imperfectly before we get to 2030. Yeah, there shouldn't be any sort of gatekeeping.
Yeah, love that. I want to jump in. I've been like, I mean, ever since ever since I learned about Connor's work, I've been pretty jealous of, of his job and getting to full-time teach new builders what to do. And, I'm excited that you're getting to do your job too. You guys, like, y'all have to come to Halifax at some point. Like, I have a little architecture office where I teach people how to like tape stuff. Like, and so having, having whole, cohorts of students going through is just amazing. And I'm really curious. I'm curious about a few things and chat and like listening to you talk, like, and of course, here in BC, where young people have perhaps heard about the step code coming and the code changes, but that's coming for all of us. And I'm sort of wondering, like, have you over the last couple of years seen more interest in the high performance coming from young people as they're coming in, or is it just kind of like something they find out about once they get there? Like, what's it like when people are coming to you?
It's pretty interesting. If we went pre-pandemic, I like to tell a story that, me and my manager were wondering why we weren't getting buy-in. And I said, well, we're kind of like pirates. People know we're coming. And once they see us, they want to be a pirate too. Fast forward to once we kind of opened up again and we can get back to hands-on learning, because there's no, well, I shouldn't say there's no value, but you can't replace the value of hands-on learning. And once people started coming through and were able to see and feel and touch, and of course with the mandates from the HJs here, the number of young people coming from industry that are aware and practicing was probably about 25% of my classes, that were around 16 people in the cohort. We've had interest from different local high schools working on sort of applied projects to talk about building a hypothetical passive house and the impacts of that. Most of the new hires right now, they're asking me more questions about eco-anxiety and housing security and what are we doing for energy goals and embodied carbon. And I feel like they're interviewing me more than I'm interviewing them.
Amazing.
So it's pretty inspiring to see that. I truly believe in 5 years, the amount of valuable workforce that we're going to have out there. And the group that has really inspired me the most is the females in the trades. 21-year-old Cody, give me a nail gun and a beam and let's build a wall. I did not have the patience to slow down and do this. And I'm really impressed with the work ethic that comes out of the females that are in the group. I feel like there's this whole demographic of unincluded people that had barriers to get over because it was a boys club for a long time. That ship has sailed. And I find when we have all people working together collectively and all their input is valued, then all of a sudden that becomes a really inspiring place to be. And again, with the young cohorts coming through, it's a lot of excitement. If they weren't aware of it, I find that a few of them just don't want to leave the room after. They're asking if they can drop a resume with me. They wonder if they can volunteer with mock-ups. They find it very exciting. And so that gives me a tremendous amount of hope for, what we're feeling right now with the labor crunch and what the information we're trying to move ahead with. There's going to be a whole wave of very talented people in the next 4 years.
Wow. Thanks for training them. I mean, it's great to, I'm going to be pointing at you. I've done, a little bit of advocacy here, kind of trying to see if we can drum up something similar in our local, like, community colleges. And there's so much demand for just like shitty stick-built stuff right now, unfortunately, everybody is just going to go, like, they're farming, young carpenters out to condos, right? And it's disheartening. So very encouraging to see what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, for a long time, the industry was very concerned on what's on this side of the wall and this side of the wall, and this whole zone in the middle was just ignored. And little putty, little paint. Hey, look, we did it. 5 years later, we'll see the effects of, you know, molding, condensation, extended wetting, poor indoor air quality, discomfort, high utility bills. You know, the list goes on and on. And you know, resiliency for fire in BC is going to be the next big topic. Deep energy retrofits, existing buildings, the homeowner issue. How are we going to make this affordable for the renters? We had an environmental minister come through and talk to a cohort of our instructors where we got to give him our feedback on the roadmap to Clean BC. So I really can't promote the work that BCIT is doing in all departments, not just the School of Construction and the Environment, School of Transportation, Health Sciences, School of Business, where we're looking at collaborating a lot of our departments to create different micro-credentials as well, like a construction and business micro-credential. Like, so many people are good at their trade, but they don't know how to do the books. I think just encouraging people to get into free enterprise and do it quite well is going to be quite important, because there's so much opportunity out there, and there's not enough people doing this well yet that you're almost creating a new trade. Like this air sealing, you know, if I could look at my crystal ball of where I need to be in 5 years, I think it's going to be existing homes. I think what we're going to see with embodied carbon next, and not just operational carbon, we're going to have great strides.
Hey, that's a great segue, Cody, because again, you got these amazing mock-ups behind you, and again, they were created part of like the LEAP program, which is the local energy advisors partnerships. And so you've got these mock-ups, and they were all focused about kind of the step code and looking at our operating carbon. But you kind of talk right there is, you know, the embodied carbon is now this kind of other thing we talk about in relationship to our operating energy. And so how has that changed in recent years at BCIT, and how have you guys spoke about that, which also leads to another hat you wear, which is the mass timber education. So I mean, you got many hats you wear. So just kind of talk about, you know, how mock-ups have evolved, what some mock-ups that you guys are potentially like changing, because for those that haven't been to BCIT, there is over 40 different mock-ups in that lab that showcase part 9 construction as well as part 3 and some retrofits. So I mean, you talk about a library of wall assemblies, you know, they're there. And for those that know me, I love a mock-up, and they're everywhere there, including the 2-story structure that has every kind of construction detail you can imagine. But yeah, let's talk about you know, the embodied carbon portion of mock-ups, and then also your role in changing and educating the mass timber world, which is pretty exciting too.
Yeah, I get so caught up in what I'm doing with envelope stuff that I forget about all the other exciting projects I'm in. But yeah, I think we have such a love affair with plastics and foam, and that really needs to change. And so one of the library mock-ups that we have is the material wall. I call it my Jeopardy wall of options. And we've got all the materials of insulation, membranes, you know, vapor barriers, smart vapor retarders, and the embodied carbon content of them. So when we started building some of these leap wall mock-ups behind us of the non-prescribed ways that you can hit the metrics, you know, we have XPS, we have EPS, we have cellulose, we have rock wool. And those were kind of the 4 flavors that we did with NRCan. And we started to realize that, you know, these all have an embodied carbon cost with them. You know, cellulose and rock wool were a little bit on the lower side because it's mainly recycled material. And we're encapsulating the building as a whole: concrete, windows, you know, cladding, drywall, etc. And we realized we had an opportunity to create a low carbon mock-up. So there's the colorful one behind me here with the blue Siga Majvest on the outside. There's actually wood dense fiberboard as exterior insulation. We just changed the location of our critical barrier, WRBAB, to the outbound portion of that, thinking about renewable details around the windows. We have hemp bat insulation, low VOC membranes, a lot of wood and metal claddings, because metal can be recycled an infinite amount of times. We put that into the embodied carbon calculator, and we were negative 19 tons of carbon just cradle to gate before we built it. So I like to share that story with young carpenters to say, hey, we just buy materials we choose, and through procurement, we can battle that embodied carbon with standard building materials. Furthering that to mass timber, We just did our first public offering of the Mass Timber Installers Associate Certificate. So it's a 6-month program. They come to myself and the head of steel trades because we're merging carpentry with steel erectors and concrete and mass panels to have these hybrid buildings and eventually leading towards hopefully more lower embodied carbon options than concrete. So they spend 2 weeks with us where we fully erect a variety of connections, a variety of glulam beams, CLT floor panels, CLT wall panels. We actually build our NLT roof panels and fly them on site. And we have some enclosure panels as well. And we talked about the sequencing of, you know, everything to fire code, electrical code, air and water barrier, rising damp, interstory drift. Like, so we really have a collaborative atmosphere between different departments. Because it's a new emerging technology. We spend a lot of time going to modular prefab association meetings because that's, you know, the offsite dirt component. You know, it's another growing emergence that we're seeing in the province here. But there's the whole underlying or overarching conversation of building science. And I feel if we hold ourselves accountable to our 5 critical barriers, one time well, measure our metrics, and you know, like I keep going back to, energy conservation is just one amazing attribute to the way that we're building purposefully and intentfully now. So yeah, a lot of cool things, a lot of options out there. I wish BC was not so in love with chipping up wood and turning it into hog fuel, and we could be making more mass timber factories. But that's a whole other podcast.
No, absolutely. And I mean, luckily enough, our good friends over in Maine have created Timber HP, and those wood fiber products are online. And I know that they're looking at a factory in Oregon and maybe someplace close in the BC. So again, that installation is definitely coming. And let's talk about mentorship, for example, because it was great that you had an opportunity to work with Chris Magwood on that particular mock-up to measure it and using the beam calculator to look at, you know, local Canadian low fiber, low carbon products. But you've had the pleasure, and I've had too, of working with an amazing mentor, Mr. James Berger, that, you know, got you into the school. For those that haven't met James Berger, he started off teaching a lot of the high performance methodology because he really wanted to work with getting all the builders on board. And in early parts of the city of Vancouver, you had to go to Saturday class, which was for you to learn your barrier. I would call it detention with Mr. Principal Bourget because he ran a tight ship. And if you haven't had the words, "What is your plan?" plastered until your head, your forearms, or your back of the brain, you haven't met James Bourget. So great that you had the opportunity with him, and we'll talk about kind of what he's learned to you. But what's exciting with BCIT is a mentor for a lot of the Passos community here in Canada is now Guido Wimmers is now going to be the Dean of Construction as of a month ago. And so we've got some amazing people that we've had mentors with, and you've had the pleasure of James. And so how often do you still get to connect with him, and what fun new tips has he been working on with you?
Oh man, James, he has a unique ability to come up with a better detail by the time he's finished speaking. So he is just, I call him the think tank, the library of ideas. And you know, he changed my life. He gave me an amazing gift of downloading his information to me. I just started helping him out because first time I met him, I knew that, you know, normally in the driver's seat as a project manager, I'm the guy that people are asking questions to. I finally had someone with 20 years experience on top of me that I could do all my sounding board off of. We became really tight, and like you say, he runs a very tight ship, but he has such an impact on the industry as a whole. I try to keep touch with him, even though he's moved to the Kootenays now. I worked with him at Murray Frank's Bill It Right Center for a long time, where I got to absorb, you know, from that think tank of people. Like you say, Guido Wimmer, he's fantastic to be our new dean. There's a lot of nervousness because the last dean, Wayne Hand, we worked really well with. We had a great relationship. He was really inspired by what Alex has really created with the lab. And to learn that we have a new dean that used to be very big part of Passive Canada and is very fundamentally involved in the growth of our department. So if I was to look in my crystal ball of things to come, and tell you, I probably couldn't even put a finger on the pulse of what's going to happen, but it'll be exciting. You know, a lot of stimulation around the lab. Like you say, Connor, you're in an old 1950s building yourself. We are in an old airplane hangar here at BCIT, and we will soon be moving into a mass timber building, where if you're ever in here in the summertime, we have a big steel door that our thermal imager hits about 60 degrees Celsius. So we're building the most comfortable structures in the most uncomfortable space. So I'm really excited that we barely snuck into that building, just because everything we were teaching was so new. But we literally just got in at the last minute, and we have input on what the building's going to look like now and then how it's going to perform. So pretty exciting that there's so much forward thinking going on at BCIT. The mentorship here, the amount of exciting people come through with exciting ideas, and like other departments wanting to collaborate with us to create new associate certificates. You know, it feels like the sky's the limit. And I was a big fan of always saying, when you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to leave that room. I will never be that person here. And that's, you know, that's a big credit to what the team has created. So my 5-year plan will hopefully be a 20-year outlook.
Absolutely. So great. Go ahead, Connor.
I mean, everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on every single bit of it. I think all of us too who teach skilled trades, whether it's part-time on weekends or with Passos Canada with workshops or full-time, is we do feel at least I feel fortunate to have a space, no matter how old the building is, to teach young people and teach students how to build and build better. And it is from a place of being very fortunate. I'm curious, just a little bit inside baseball. So we have programs that are created by the Ministry of Education, and we build programs to align with those. And those are really for us only post-secondary. So they're 2-year, 3-year programs. We don't yet have what you're talking about, which is really exciting, around micro-credentials, which I think is such a bright spot, because we have a lot of professionals who ask us, I'd love to come to learn, but I can't take 2 years out of my business and come and hook up here. And I'd love to do this, but I don't have the time to come and do a year. Can you talk a bit about either whether this is across BC or maybe across BCIT, but how is it that you have created these like smaller credentials for professionals to come in and like tune up their learning versus start at the foundation?
Yeah, like you hit the nail on the head, where people are busy on their sites and they can't take an extended amount of time away. And I think it really populated out of the pandemic. Online learning or virtual learning from home or the job site was so popular that we started being flexible with our students' time. And it started out, 1 to 4, once a week. Someone can take a bit of their lunch break and a bit of their afternoon and learn from their site or their office or their car. Because before the pandemic, it was 5 days of learning and a 2-day workshop after. That's a lot of time to take away from your sites, and you're either paying for the course and your team is volunteering their time, and that might not have been the best scenario. So to be able to do our micro credentials virtually online, and then you come in for a 2-day workshop for the hands-on portion, and then if you choose to take the Passos Canada or I guess the certification after that, you can opt into the exam. So making a flexible space for learning, also making it available sometimes from 6 to 9 in the evenings. Builders and professionals out there can choose what works best for their schedule. And like I said before, with inflation happening, we saw a real decline in our intake of students. And the government identified that as well, and came up with these future skills grants to cover those costs. So the micro credentials are really created to take, depending on your time schedule, you can do 40 hours, you can do smaller courses like a 4 and 1 individually, or you get a bit of a cost savings to do them all at once. And it really, you can opt in. If you've taken some of it, you can put it down for a while, come back when it's good for your schedule. It just makes a flexible space for learning. And I think it really just stemmed all from how Zoom virtual learning took off. Because you can't get people from all around the Lower Mainland or wherever you are to assemble easily. It just became a great opportunity to be flexible.
That's really cool. I think that's really exciting. I think it probably gives schools like yours and maybe like ours a way to be competitive with these newer institutions that offer, definitely have a different business model than ours and can be more nimble in how they create content and align with industry needs and change with a step code that changes every 3 years? What's the frequency of how you change steps out west?
Well, we just sort of made mandatory step 3 across the board. Each municipality had an opportunity to opt in at different times. But now all the ministers have said, okay, no, step 3 across the board. I'm not sure when step 4 is going to be implemented, but some municipalities have actually said, no, we're going to step 5. Like, we're going to go there right away. That freaked a lot of people out, but those that opted in early were well positioned to do that.
That's cool. I mean,
and I do want to sort of comment that you don't have to be in Vancouver to tune into our courses. We've had people tune in from Australia. So the reach of these virtual courses is incredible.
Yeah, so 2028 is step 4, 2032 step 5. But as Cody indicated, we've got municipalities on the North Shore that are already looking at step 5. And I mean, again, when I started, I'm like, builders, just learn one step, just learn step 5. You don't have to worry about learning 4 other steps. Some took that advice, some didn't. And the ones that did had definitely opportunities to make mistakes and learn, because if you got 1.2 and the goal was just to turn the blower machine on, well, guess what? You went from a great opportunity to learn and to dial things in. And again, it's all about this repeatable system that Cody's mentioned a few times. So amazing program. So yeah, if you're across Canada, across North America, look at this program, because again, you can take the course at midnight if you're on the East Coast and make sure you've ticked your box. So if you want to be a leader in your neighborhood, you could take the BCIT course and be able to feel like you're amongst peers that are trying to adopt and incorporate those amazing skill sets into it all. So
yeah. I will say with the BCIT course, you get a learning hub, which is like a virtual textbook that has access to how-to videos, literature, skill testing questions. It's kind of like your portal for your classroom all in one. It's password protected, that you get to keep it like a textbook for long after the course. And there's a lot of background information that goes along with that as well. So it's not like it's just here's some information. All the Zooms are recorded, much like this one. So if you can't join in for some reason, you can go back, watch the recordings, do the competency checks, and opt to come into person whenever you can.
Yeah, that flexibility is just great. And again, I mean, it's just great to see how the pandemic occurred and how amazingly the BCIT was able to pivot to get to online research and to be able to get to continue the programs, and then at the same time adapt the language, because again, the courses were about net zero, and net zero seems to be a language that seems to be sticking in Canada, and yet the passives principles and conversations are there. So it's great that you're able to adapt so quickly and keep the education happening to the builders. And so even though the step code dates were there, you guys were able to help there and educate. And again, I think it's amazing that you talk about who you've taught, like it's thousands of builders, and like that's a remarkable thing to say, that your ripple effect is not just in the tens or hundreds, but thousands. And I mean, that's great, Cody. And it's a great legacy to your hard work and to the mentors that have guided you and me, that you're able to connect, especially the youth, because they're the ones that are going to take over from us. And if they get inspired by all the work you're doing, they're really in good hands. So excellent job on
yeah. I
Not
really appreciate that. Some of the cohorts that we do see are architects, engineers, and the most exciting group that I've actually taught, and frightening at the same time, was the Builder Official Association of BC. So we've had them through, and we are starting to go into the outlying communities in the Kootenays to teach their group of builders as well. So that was a great opportunity that I get to learn something new every day from them as well. So it's pretty exciting to see that all levels are leaning in. But it's funny that the inspectors are the last ones that we've taught.
Yeah. Mike Cairns was from Intertech Windows, was out with James Roger and Caslow today. So Mike says hello. And
oh, wow.
Glad you're
Fantastic.
doing well. And again, crazy that James is there. So anyhow, we'll bring him back in town enough to enjoy his presence.
Oh yeah, I told him I'm not done with him yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, gentlemen, we're coming up on the hour, so we should probably think about wrapping this up. Not that we've got to leave necessarily. Maybe we should open open the floor to questions from some of our other guests or participants this evening. For those of you that do have to get going, I totally understand. We all have a limited amount of time every day to try and pack all this in. So I do get that. But if
I'm kind of
anybody-
hoping for an update on Leo's attic. Anybody else?
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing an update on Leo either. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to know whether Leo's going to dress as Aaron for Halloween.
Yes. You did a great job of placing his stickers appropriately for Flash Meet, International Flashing Awareness Day. So we'll see what's going on in the oh, there he is.
Oh, we got some
That's
Intello
looking
going
good.
on.
Looking good.
I like
There
your
we go.
lighting. What do
Oh,
you got
that's
for
my
site lighting?
it's a sight light. Daddy. Hey guys, that's my dad. Hi.
Hi, Dad.
No, it's a light I had built for a sort of a spray booth in a rented workshop, and it's just turned out to be great job site lighting.
Awesome.
So you guys,
Repurposing it. Love it.
I'll holler at you, but I'm actually just right busy spray foaming the Intello to the floor.
Hey, you do
because
what
we're
you
on
gotta
the
do.
we're on the second floor, which is what's being renovated and air sealed. The kitchen is below, but that'll be a later project. So I've been tucking it down below, and I'm just basically creating an air barrier, I guess, at floor level, if you will, so that later on, if we renovate the kitchen, we can
Make the connection.
make the connection exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
but
You're leaving a floppy bit for later, man. I love it.
yeah, so I mean, it's looking better than you guys saw last time. Here, let me just unplug my laptop.
All right, folks, we're getting the tour. Leo is in the
So there's a lot more.
retrofit.
There's a lot more tape up. There's a lot more white. There's a lot less rock wool visible. So we are actually getting close now.
Excellent.
Sorry.
It's awesome, man.
Great stuff.
So,
Yeah.
Well-
Great work.
Love how you got your dad involved. And that's a little bit of a quick segue is Cody, that lovely disco ball that definitely has a Saint Amour touch, because when we had a Passivos Canada event, my dad made sure that Alex bought a disco ball into the place, because you can't have a good party with a disco ball. And Saint Amours, unfortunately, we like to party. So
Yeah, that's why we're friends, right?
yeah. So Leo, great to see your dad there. It's great that he's helping out. And Dad, way to
yeah,
work.
he's right now doing the sound dampening in the interior walls with rock wool.
Awesome. Love it.
Cool. Or forget Cody.
Connor,
Go ahead, Leo.
how what's your availability of your student? Oh,
Hey, Leo.
yep, do you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Connor, what's the availability of your students to come out and practice what you've taught them in my house?
Do you have a big yellow school bus? Is my first question.
I got a job site van.
Yeah, I mean, we teach.
We can play clown van.
That's my whole life. Have you seen me get out of a vehicle? So we teach an applied building science course, and right now we have second year students we're taking to job sites. So we're teaching them how to use diagnostic equipment, and we take them to sites. And one of the lovely things about being downtown Toronto is we have great sites around us. The difficulty is getting anywhere outside the city takes an hour and change, and we need a big bus to make that happen. But Leo, if we could work out transportation, that'd be wonderful. If we can't, maybe we can do it virtually. When you do your testing or diagnostics, maybe we can just throw you one of our foggers that can help you make that visible, and then we can watch the smoke show outside, or the lack of smoke show from the outside when things don't when things don't leak.
Or alternatively, is there someone you know who you can send out here and who can, like, I guess, live stream, who knows more about this than I do?
That's a great question. Let me think. I think a lot of my colleagues who started out doing residential have grown into doing much larger projects. Just it's where the industry has gone for what they're doing. And I find it's hard to find someone who can do basically an energy audit, but also stay with you for a couple hours and show you where your envelope needs some improvement or the opportunities are. So let me rack my brain about who's up, because you're up by Aurora, right? Aurora?
More towards Port Perry.
Okay.
Like between Aurora and Port Perry.
Okay. Let me think about it, and then I'll shoot you a message.
It's also something which I'm happily then to at some point also take on, if you will, and be that person once I know more that you can send to live stream.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's
mentorship in
easier?
action.
Yeah, just if you put yourself in what you called your van, come down to GBC, join us for like an afternoon. We'll show you how stuff works. Don't tell the college, but we'll work out a deal where you take one of the blower door kits from a guy that looks like me, and then we'll help you set it up.
Awesome.
Love it.
When are you going to be ready for that?
Yeah.
When are you going to be ready for that, Leo? When do you think? Like, no pressure, just.
I mean, there is the pressure's on, if you will. It's I'm going to do a best I can do here, but drywall is probably already going in next week, so there is not much correction, if you will, later.
Gotcha.
But we started this before I was wise enough to do a blower door test before to have a benchmark. So this will be a benchmark, and then we'll see what other renovations we do in the house and go from there and see how much better we get. I have no doubt that this room we're in right now, for instance, will feel a lot warmer than it was without insulation and air sealing. I mean, we also weren't in this house very long. We'd bought it and then started renovating it very quickly. So, but anyway, again, now I'm wiser, but
you've learned so much.
Oh, it's been quite a vertical learning curve.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate the fact you're working hard with your dad after hours, and you're working and listening. I mean, again, gotta love a.
Oh, I can't imagine a better topic today for you guys while I'm working away.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's quit it.
Look forward to talking to you guys next time.
Awesome, Leo.
Awesome, Leo.
Oh, I see. We're the last ones left. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that.
All good. I
All
love
good,
it.
Leo.
Dad's a slave driver. He's like, turn it off and work. Love it. It's like my dad too.
Yep. Yes. There's something about dads. They all seem to have that characteristic. I'm sure I'll never be like that.
Strong work ethic. I gotta love it.
Anyway. All right. Bye, guys. Connor
Thanks,
will be
Leo.
in touch.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Before I forget, Cody, I have a picture of just about every mock-up that you had in the lab. There was a few that were like tucked in behind other mock-ups that I couldn't climb over, or I didn't think I probably should climb over to get a picture of. But yeah. You also got an environmental chamber in there, or at least that's what it looked like.
Yeah, so there's a couple of new things, and I really wish I could have shown the two-story house in the lab. There is one of the PhDs here working on, and that's something that we're really trying to push here with the new dean is a lot of the research component. So there's a chamber in the back corner of the lab that has a large section that you can put a 10-foot wall in, so it kind of wheels out, and it's kind of like a guarded hotbox where it'll have like -30 on one side and +30 on the other, kind of see what that sort of stratification does to the wall and how it performs. And there's a new chamber built that takes up the majority of where we would build stuff that is a sound chamber. So a lot of research development. Just had a great purge of the summer of 2023, and a lot of our mock-ups went to different community centers and different colleges as we're making room for new exciting things. So unfortunately, I was only able to showcase some of the cool stuff that we do behind me, but we try to build things in a very sort of cross-section integrated manner, so anybody can come up and sort of see through osmotic learning. We do sort of promote that we have an open door policy here, that if you're in town and you want to come into the lab and check things out, by all means. If there's a class happening, just a little bit of etiquette. And if you want an instructor to do that guided tour, there's a lot of people you can reach out to facilitate that. So we want to make sure that, you know, whether you take a course, our intention is to sell you a course by coming in here, but we also want to supplement education with some practical information. And a big benefit for BCIT and me working here is they allow me to go to sites and do what I do with our past students to give them on-site backup as well. So a really collaborative space, which is fantastic. And I spent my morning at a passive house building. It's a 6-story, 100-unit building by some of our past students. And we took some of their ideas and plans. I'm going to get to work building on another mock-up this evening, because we have them and all their tendered trades coming in tomorrow for 8 hours of training. So really exciting that I get to go around to different sites and see what people are doing and speak to the intent of their details in some hands-on learning. So we'll have 3 instructors in tomorrow: an energy advisor, a carpenter, and a commissioning mechanical instructor. So kind of a 3-angled approach to being a unified front. We all need to go forward together. Who's doing this work? Who's doing that? And how can we all play nice in the sandbox?
Yeah, I love how those mock-ups are like the onion. You know, you can peel them apart. You can see how, you know, the real detail comes together, and how, again, you get to the cladding. Because once the cladding gets on, again, all that stuff gets hidden, but all the critical details need to be exposed. And you guys have done a great job of making sure and how that's done. So yeah, again, started with James Roger with some amazing mock-ups, and now they're in the hands with you. So great stuff. Love it.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate being involved in this conversation. It's been a lot of fun. I hope we all get to have a beer in person one day. If you come out to BC, give me a call, look me up. Hopefully I'm available. If not, come to one of my sites.
Well, next time I make it to Vancouver, I will definitely let you know ahead of time, or I'll let Sean know and he can let you know. But really, if you have a question and you're out there, you're still with us, this is the time to ask, because in 5 minutes, we're gone. Hey, there we go.
One more. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Interrupting somebody?
Jeremiah first.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Nice conversation. It's good to hear the trades and education component, because that's really important going forward in terms of encouraging young people to get involved. And one of the things that we've found over the last few years is high school co-op programs are one of the simplest way to get young people in, because most schools are, scrambling to find opportunities for students, and it usually provides, there's somebody local, so to each school district, which is great. We've now on to our 3rd co-op student over the years, and one's still with us. One's gone on to now start and work on his own. But with the young people that we have over the last few years, they now only know, taping details. They've never actually worked with, traditional materials improperly. So they're learning right from the get-go. Like, their first experience on a job site is, messing around with Sega tape or Vanatape or whatever, some kind of sealant. So when they can get exposure at a 17 years old kind of thing, I think it's it really gives them an opportunity going forward to kind of remember that, and hopefully something sticks there, because that's a pretty impressionable age to learn good details.
And
That's fantastic.
Jeremiah, is that a technical high school, or is that just a
No.
high school that they can select that kind of co-op?
Yeah, they can. I think they can kind of select co-op programs from, and basically any employer who's willing to to take on a student. I don't know if there's a whole lot of directive from the school. I think they just put feelers around to essentially local businesses if there's a student that's kind of interested. We've been fortunate with it's there's now been a bit of a, we've been asked, you know, how many students we'll take on at once, because there's been a bit of a list now each time a new semester rolls around of kids that are wanting to try, which is great, but one at a time's enough.
I love that. Students learn in different ways, and they're starting to identify that hands-on skills. I know in BC that they consider some real hands-on skills consideration for high school credits.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that I would have taken advantage of, because I was that kid that couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
I had to get up and do stuff.
Yeah. I just met with the co-op teacher yesterday. He was on site doing an evaluation of the student that's working with us right now. And there's a lot of kids that, you know, sitting in the classroom is just not necessarily what they're after. And he said, whenever there are opportunities to try something, you know, a little bit different, or, you know, just go out and get a little bit dirty and try something, is there are tons of kids that are actually interested in doing that. It does take a little bit of, you know, it's not the easiest thing always when you're busy and you're trying to, you know, move quickly and accomplish a certain amount in a day. But we've kind of started to realize the first couple of times we did it, we were kind of like, you know, constantly trying to, you know, be productive at the same time. We've now realized a little bit more that they're there as shadows primarily. And if you can also make them busy and keep them active and engaged all day, that's great. But on the days where you really got to get your head down and you have to get something done and just maybe can't quite have that attention, it's okay if they're watching you over your shoulder, because that's part of the, you know, that's part of what they're learning too, is seeing how the business operates and how a site operates, and, you know, all of those sort of different levels.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. Carpentry will have a position for everybody, really. And it's a bit of a dirty word in Vancouver to some neighborhoods, like the trades in general, but just the price of a pickup truck right now, that should tell you that it's a worthwhile career. You know, it'll pay you to go to school. As soon as you get out of school, there's no student debt. You're working at a professional level towards a goal. And the pathways are infinite. You get energy advising, architecture, engineering. You could build your entire life and love that visual progress every day. It's a very rewarding career. So it's cool to see that that's happening where you are.
Yeah, well, and the apprenticeship program is great. We're on to our second apprentice now, and I mean they go through the process with, you know, most of them, the two that are doing it now really aren't that keen on doing the in-class part, but it's in the middle of winter, so they're kind of happy about you know, February and March kind of thing for a couple months. But I mean, they come out of all of that with like they end up with some money in their pocket a lot of times, because by the time the tuition's like, you know, $1,500 for the entire time, and there's usually some kind of tool bursary at the end too, that they end up getting some of that back. So it's pretty much a win all the way around, if, you know, for kids that are interested. But in high school, they may not know that that's an option necessarily, unless they get a chance to get out there and try it.
So in Atlantic Canada, and I'm not sure if Ontario has this, I think BC has a similar program, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the teen apprenticeship program. So while you're in high school, if you go to work for a builder during the summer, those hours can count towards your first block. And it's, you know, you think about it, you know, grade 10, 11, and 12, you put the summer in, you come out of high school with your first block complete. That's, yeah, really can't beat that.
Yeah, and I think too, with students, it's the more that we can show them the interesting components, as opposed to just having a co-op student there to sweep the floor for you for like some free labor, which I think that does happen occasionally, and that's a real drag, because it's not really doing anybody a good service. So the more that you can get them on a tool quickly, and so that there's some engagement, and they, you know, something they've never tried before, and, you know, I think that encourages kids a lot too, as opposed to just giving them, you know, grunt labor jobs. That's not the point of the whole thing.
Yeah, you give them employment with purpose, and you find the passion that lies underneath.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, just to call out what you're doing, Jeremiah, is to teach building science, and we see at the school too, is construction when I grew up was largely targeted towards the bigger, stronger people.
Yep.
You had to be able to put two bundles of shingles and climb a ladder or lift pallets and all this crazy stuff. But if you can get someone who is, detail orientated, they really get a lot of, value and payback from doing things well. If you
Yeah.
can teach them taping details and give them like finesse work, that shows them a way into the trades that isn't just you have to wear a pouch and carry a stack of lumber and go frame walls, but there's different ways in. And I think it's an exciting thing to teach them. It's not just about strength, it's about detail and care and attention. I think that's a great thing you're doing.
Yeah, no, it is enjoyable for sure. And I know, like, among our team, my brother is that guy that would lug the 2 bundles of shingles that's his mentality, and it's great. Like, he's amazing at it. But when it comes to, a building science portion of things, I probably end up being the one that badgers everybody about that constantly, bringing different things onto site to try. But eventually it kind of sticks, and now so those conversations happen more and more. You just have to keep pushing at it and bringing as many new things into the mix as you possibly can until people realize that that new thing was better than the old way, that the previous way that was doing it, or it's worse, right? Like, you find out kind of what's there, and the more people on a team that can try those things, the better. And especially if you've got young people learning along with, sometimes they're learning things that we're learning for the first time too, which I think that gives them a feeling of being at the same level for a little while, when we're trying a new material or a system that we maybe aren't terribly familiar with, and we can say, we haven't done this either, so we're all learning this together, and they're not feeling like they're jumping in 30 years behind, kind of thing.
Yeah, I like to say the only reason why I got to where I am is because I screwed a lot of things up on my pathway. And I don't mind sharing those pitfalls, because there's a lot of value in education and failures. You don't have to be an expert at everything, but you can learn along the way.
For sure.
That's awesome. And Jeremiah, you're at a Goderich, is that right?
Yeah. So southwestern Ontario, kind of a couple hours west of you.
Awesome. Well, if I'm ever at West, I'd love to come see you. We do stuff around London, I guess we're up to like Grand Bend.
Yep.
As far as like Thornbury and then Owen Sound.
Okay. Yeah. So if we're like between Grand Bend and Owen Sound, kind of right along the lake.
Okay. Well, I'm letting you right now. I'm going to self-invite myself to your site someday. I will let you know before I show up.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll bring a white helmet.
Yeah, for sure. The one we're on right now is pretty interesting. If you find your way up this way, it's a lot of fun. There's some good details going on there. We're pretty stoked about that one.
That's awesome. Well, I think the work you're doing, the stuff you're sharing, I love your feed, the stuff, the details you call out, the way you talk about them very with a lot of care and attention is wonderful. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I guess unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about, we should probably wrap this up. We all have other things that we have to do to get ready to finish out the week. Big thank you to Cody for taking time out of your busy schedule and showing us a little glimpse of behind the scenes at BCIT. And a big thank you to all of our hosts for really making this possible. I don't know if there's anybody else we need to thank. Anybody?
Aaron,
Well,
could I ask a quick question? Yes.
Go for it, Leo.
Yep.
First of all, I realized I didn't want that to come across like Connor, that I'm just looking for a free lunch. Obviously, any services I'm happy to pay for. Also, you guys know that Chris Magwood is in Peterborough, which is only an hour from me. So I was very sad when I saw like he was postponing his, he had like a building science course lined up, which then obviously didn't happen, it seems. Does anyone know what happened there? Is that I've never met him. I'd love to meet him at some point, but I know that some of you guys chat with him.
Yeah, I can take that to a sidebar and catch you up. He ran a wonderful school called the Endeavor Center, which is based out of Peterborough. He initially taught at Fleming College that had a natural building program, and then built his own private school called the Endeavor Center, where each summer students would be, I think, small groups between 8 and 12 students would come and learn for the summer. They learn both the design process and the physical carpentry aspects. And each year, his school, the Endeavor Center, would build a physical, real building for a client. It was often based in natural building science, so a lot of straw bale and alternative materials to conventional construction. And it's a wonderful, visceral way to learn hands-on. He's now moved on to really focus on his passion, which is embodied carbon, or upfront carbon, as Lloyd Alter might say, and doing that at a larger scale. So the Endeavor Center right now does not exist currently, but hopefully in the future, something like it will fill its place in the Ontario market.
Awesome. And I mean, of course, you know, I thank you, Cody, for your presentation, because I actually wasn't aware of the, did I understand that correctly, that there are those courses were online?
Yes, yeah, most of them are available online, and there are a number of options for in-person as well. So if you wanted to tune into some of our courses, just check out BCIT ZEB, and that'll lead you to, there's probably over a dozen different courses from different disciplines that you can join in on. Everything from life cycle analysis of buildings, embodied carbon calculations, and the envelope specialty and passive house courses.
Awesome. And Connor, of course, I know you teach the passive house trades course, which is like local for me, I suppose.
Yeah, so we host the Ontario version of the Passive House Canada Tradespersons course. The next one's running October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. So Halloween Day and the following 2 days. And unfortunately, unlike Cody, which is, I'm so jealous, and like my professional crush on you and your whole institute has just increased from today. We don't have any micro credentials. The way to learn with us or with our students is in that 2-year commitment, 3-year commitment. We'd love to grow more weekend workshops, 40-hour workshops, but for now, it is the Passive Canada Tradespersons course, and then our full-time programs.
That's yeah. I also got very envious of, like, as much as I love Ontario, I was like, I wish I could be in BC for those micro credentials. But we'll make do for now, I guess. But anyway, thanks for that. Oh, and thank you for pointing out all of the importance of training someone who is detail oriented, etc., for air sealing, so that my father could overhear all that, because one of his big frustrations has been too many details.
Anyway.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we could share curriculum with our new dean pretty soon. I'm really hoping that, you know, we can have this as approved curriculum that we can collaborate coast to coast on, because sooner or later we're going to be harmonized, and the only difference between us is climate zone.
Thanks also from me. I really enjoyed listening to that. Thank you very much.
That was my dad.
Awesome. Well, I want to raise my hands in gratitude. West Coast, thank you to all of you and the hard work you put on, you know, facilitating this kind of talk. First time I've got to chat with you guys as a whole. Very humbled and honored at the same time to be part of this conversation. And it just further enforces that, you know, we all have a lot of work to do, but we're all very like-minded and passionate. And I'm so grateful that the industry that I love so much is heading in this direction. Because yeah, we're all going to benefit from it as a whole.
Thanks so much for your time, Cody. This is a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Love it.
We will.
Thank
We will
you.
definitely do it again sometime. I don't know when, but someday we'll have you back on and see where BCIT is, you know, in the future versus where it is now. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
unless anybody has unless anybody has anything else, thank you very much for joining us, and good night. We'll see you in a month.
Great. Thank you, everyone.